Howdy, everybody. Oh, hang on. There's no one else in here, so it's just me talking to you. Welcome back to another Story Time with the Principal. I'm Chris Kirby from Porter Elementary, and we've made it through our first week of virtual learning, and I will let you know that yes, there have been some ups and downs, but it's mostly been about learning and trying to figure out how to make this work the best for everyone, and we continue to do that. So I thank all of the parents and all of the students and all of the teachers for the great efforts that everyone has made to make this a successful start of school. But that's not really why we're here. We're here for a little bit of reading for everyone, and it is next week. Constitution Day happens. Constitution Day happens next week. So Miss Irwin has chosen a book appropriate for Constitution Day, and that is Grace Goes to Washington. It is written by Kelly DiPucchio and illustrated by Leun Pham. Grace Goes to Washington. One Friday afternoon in April, Mrs. Barrington shared a large diagram of the three branches of the U.S. government. But Grace Campbell could not stop daydreaming about the upcoming field trip to Washington, D.C. Grace, do you know who's in charge here? Mrs. Barrington asked. Who's in charge here? Grace repeated. Principal Perez? A few of her classmates giggled. Well, said Mrs. Barrington, I suppose you could say Principal Perez is like the executive branch here at Wilson Elementary because she's the head of our school. But right now we're talking about the U.S. government. Sorry, Grace answered. The president. He or she leads the executive branch. That's correct, Mrs. Barrington smiled. The president. The last bell of the day rang. We'll discuss more next week, she announced. Student council members Grace and Sam, don't forget, you have a meeting after school. At the meeting, class representatives were discussing their ideas on how to spend the money raised from their holiday bake sale. Thomas and his committee petitioned for new sports equipment. Grace and her committee thought new books for the library was the way to go. Principal Perez even offered her own suggestion. The music room sure could use some new instruments. Mr. Marshall, the media center teacher, listened carefully to all of their arguments and took notes. They're all good ideas, Grace later admitted to Sam. There's no way we'll agree before the vote next week. You know what I was thinking during the meeting? Sam asked. No, what? If Principal Perez is like the executive branch, I think the student council is kind of like the legislative branch, because we're the elected leaders from each class and we help make decisions for the school. Grace considered Sam's comparison. Yeah, who knew so many people had a say in how to spend cookie money? She grumbled. The following day, Grace could hardly contain her excitement. It was finally field trip day. As the bus drove down Pennsylvania Avenue, cherry blossoms dotted the streets like pink pom-poms. Grace and her classmates visited the Lincoln Memorial, the U.S. Capitol, where the legislative branch meets, and the Supreme Court building. That's where you'll find the judicial branch and Supreme Court judges, Sam pointed out. They decide if our rules and laws are fair. Kind of like Mr. Marshall does at our student council meetings, Grace added. During a tour of the White House, home of the executive branch, Grace's dream of becoming president felt more real. Their final stop of the day was the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial. Grace studied the words engraved on the monument and thought about their meaning. Make a career of humanity. Commit yourself to the noble struggle for equal rights. You will make a greater person of yourself, a greater nation of your country, and a finer world to live in. At recess the next day, arguments about what to purchase for the school grew more heated. Look at this crummy basketball, Clara complained. It's practically worthless. At least you have a ball, Fletcher groaned. There are two new books in the Ninja Wizard series, but our library doesn't have either one. Hannah lobbied the loudest for new instruments. Well, I, for one, am sick and tired of playing the recorder in music class. Principal Perez is right. Grace glanced at Thomas, who was unusually quiet. She looked past him to see who he was staring at. Grace didn't recognize the boy sitting all alone. He must be new, she thought. He looked kind of sad. Just then the bell rang, and students scattered. "Wait!" Grace called out to the boy. "You forgot something." Grace handed him his sketchbook. "I like your drawing," she said. "Thanks," said the boy with a smile. Grace caught up to Thomas in the hallway. "I have an idea," she said. A few days later, the student council's last meeting of the year was being called to order. "Excuse me," Grace interrupted. "Before we vote, Thomas and I would like to introduce you to someone. This is Aman. He's new to our school. We'd like all of you to consider one more option for how to spend the bake sale money." Together, they rolled out a big poster. "We're calling it the Friendship Mall," Thomas said proudly. "Aman helped us design it." "It's a place where you can go at recess to let other students know when you need a friend," Aman explained. Next, Thomas spoke about their field trip to Washington, D.C., and Grace read a quote from Martin Luther King, Jr. "A finer, kinder world starts with us and the choices we make," she concluded. "Thank you for listening." Everyone clapped. Principal Perez wiped away a few tears. Mr. Marshall pounded his gavel. "It's time to vote." After the ballots were collected from each classroom representative and the votes were tallied, Student Council President Grace Campbell peeked at the results and grinned. "It's a unanimous decision," she announced excitedly. "All members are in favor of the Friendship Mall." The room filled with happy cheers. Principal Perez took a seat, and then, much like the president signs a bill into law, she approved the election results, making the decision official. "Today, you put your own wants and needs aside in order to serve others," she said, beaming. "That is true leadership." This time, everyone agreed. The end. Grace goes to Washington. I hope everyone has a great second week of virtual learning, and I hope everybody has a great Constitution Day.